Clark. I'm the independent chair of the Sheffield Street Tree Inquiry. Thank you for your interest in what we're discussing today. Can I ask you please to tell us your name and your role?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Julie Grocutt. I'm the Ward Councillor for Stocksbridge and Dpty Ward in Sheffield and the Deputy Leader of Sheffield City Council.
Thank you. Thanks very much for coming today, Julie. I appreciate the fact that you've agreed to come and have this conversation. I just want to remind you, I know you will remind you, but this is being recorded and will be available for people to see. It will also be live streamed for people keen to watch it straight away. And I just want to make sure you understand that and you're happy with that.
Yes, that's fine.
Very good. Also, just to say, and these will be things I'll be saying to everybody who comes to these conversations, obviously what happened during the dispute has a certain degree of emotion and feeling associated with it, and that's understandable, and some people were a little bit stressed by what happened. That said, we don't want these discussions that I'm having with people to be conducted in any other than a proper professional and cordial way. So we'll be asking everybody not to say things which could be libelous or defamatory, and not to refer to people who maybe have rights of data protection and so on, and who may not be in the public domain already. I just wanted to let you know, as I will everybody, that if we worry at any point that we're straying into territory that may get across that boundary, I will flag to you that I'm a little bit concerned about that. And then if I feel we're not solving that problem, then I may have to pause the hearing. Maybe I could just ask you if you would like to make any opening remarks. I have sent you a list of topics I'd like to discuss with you, as I have done for everybody I've invited to these conversations, but I'd like also to give you a chance to say anything you'd like to say at the beginning. So over to you.
Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you for taking on the role. I think it's a really important responsibility for the city. My involvement is extremely limited. I didn't become City Councillor until 2019, which is actually after the incidents that really your inquiry is looking into. But certainly as Deputy Leader, I have taken an interest on how the Council has been moving forward since the investigation, and so I'm here this morning to answer any questions you may have.
Perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Could you just tell us, to start with, why you and the Council decided to establish the inquiry?
I think an amount of time had passed. I think it was important that the Council was moving forward. A lot of good work had been undertaken in terms of trying to rebuild trust and confidence with local action groups, with the residents that had been affected. So I think probably now was a good time, when people have had time to reflect and think, to start looking at how we make sure that we are moving in the right direction, that the things that the Council has put in place are the right things, that they are working, that people can have their say. I think it will help the Council, hopefully, to make sure that we are improving as an organisation, that we are engaging properly and carefully with the public on all aspects of Council business. So I think that hopefully we can learn something from that. And the other important aspect was that a political agreement was reached that the inquiry would be helpful to have, and we very much welcome the fact that we're here and we finally got it started.
Very good, that's very clear. Thank you very much indeed. Well, as you know, I published terms of reference following consultations I had with quite a wide variety of people with an interest in this. But I did just want to ask you whether, recognising I published the terms of reference, whether there's anything you think is particularly important, going beyond what you've just explained as why you wanted the inquiry, anything you think is particularly important that we look into?
I think for me there's three things. Public engagement, I think, is really important that you look at that and we understand that. The nature of the PFI contract and local government funding, I think there's probably information there that will be helpful to understand. And then the experiences from the process of mediation and conflict resolution and how we can learn from that moving forward. I think they're probably 3 key areas I would very much like to pick up on.
Okay. Well, the good news is I'm planning to look into all of those things, so that's good. Thank you very much. Obviously, lots has happened since the height of the dispute, and there's been at least a partial, quite significant recovery. But the city still has to manage its highways and pavements and streetlights and trees and so on. So I wanted to ask if you could, including in respect of the street tree partnership strategy, give me your assessment of the current situation when it comes to implementing the Streets Ahead contract, including any concerns that you have about issues that are currently being faced or that might arise during the remainder of the contract, bearing in mind it's got another 15 years to run.
Yeah. Obviously, the contract was put in place in 2020, and it's rooted in 2012. Sorry, 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. And it's the partnership working was put in place in 2020.
Right. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
That I think that was the starting point for the council in terms of trying to move forward and get things on a better footing in terms of having a clear plan that they had worked through.
Yes.
I think it's important to understand that, you know, the lessons that have been learnt there were about making sure that there was a flexible combination of highway engineering, monitoring, solutions, looking at maintenance, and importantly, the removal and replacement of trees.
Yes.
Because clearly that is something that is very much at the heart of all of this, and that was to be done on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
So I think it's important that that was put in place, and my understanding is that has been a real good success up to this moment in time. I think it's important to note that as a council, we have learnt that we must work with all partners to deliver all of this for the benefits of residents, particularly to make sure that the heritage of our trees, we do very much pride ourselves on being a green city.
Yeah.
I think that's important to all residents, and we need to make sure that our trees can thrive properly and that they're there for generations to come so that people can enjoy and use them. So I think the partnership strategy that was put in place has been really good at making sure that works well. So I think for me it's about being committed to that. It's about making sure that is properly reviewed so that it does continue to work well, so that we can make sure that our trees are properly managed, properly cared for, and that everyone has a say in how that all works. I think with regard to public engagement, we give people the opportunity to have their say now on decisions on street trees, and many residents take part through the what's it called, the citizen space.
Yes.
And hopefully information will be available for you with regard to that, so that you can properly examine how well that is working, because while we think that's working well, I think it would be useful for you to take a view on that as well. The PFI model, I think it's important to understand the context of all of that and how that worked. I'm informed that at the time Labour councillors have never been supportive of the PFI model. However, the government at the time said that was the way by which funding would be accessed, and there was £1.2 billion worth of funding that was available. Clearly, council was not in a position to turn that funding down.
Yeah.
So to secure the investment that was needed for highways and environmental projects, that was the route that the council had to go down. I understand that from predecessors, and again I'm sure they will speak to you more about this, that to not take that funding just couldn't have been an option because of the benefits that would bring for the council in a whole host of different areas. And I think it also needs to be remembered that this was at a time of austerity.
Yeah.
Between 2012 and 2018, the council budget was reduced by £40 million year on year, so that's an awful lot of money not coming into the council. So again, it meant that taking the funding that was on offer was really important, and I think you do need to understand and be cognizant of those factors that were involved in that. The contract with Aiming Streets Head was the biggest investment that we've ever seen in roads, street trees, infrastructure for many years. And again, if we'd not taken the investment, it wouldn't have been possible for us to do all of that. So it was really possible that we did that. I did look out, I'm sure you've probably got these, but just to give you a flavour of those. 85% of roads and footways in the city have been resurfaced as a result of the contract. That's 1,791 miles to be precise, and 901 miles of roads. Since the contract has been in place. Sheffield was known as the pothole city. The roads were in an atrocious state before this contract. So, the benefits that it's brought to the city are, in that respect, are very valuable and were very much needed. 68,000 street lights or thereabouts have been replaced with modern LED lighting. These units have a longer lifespan, much reduced energy consumption. It's reduced carbon emissions. So again, that's helpful in terms of helping with our net zero programme, and particularly with the state of the cost of living crisis at the moment and energy bills and so forth. That's another important saving that we will benefit now from as a council. 177 traffic signals have been updated with low voltage LED technology, and have incorporated virtual detection of traffic, which again plays an important role in carbon emissions and all those sorts of things. So I could go on. There are lots of benefits to the contract that have come as a result of the funding. So I suppose the important thing is it's not just the contract wasn't just about the trees.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. That's extremely helpful. So I want to go back a bit earlier in time now. It's invaluable actually to have the perspective you've just given us on the current issues. But just going back to the earlier period, I just wanted to ask what awareness and or involvement you had of the issues that the inquiry is covering in the period between 2015 and 2019, where if I understand things correctly, you were on Stocksbridge Town Council and the Town Mayor at that time.
I am actually still a member of Stocksbridge Town Council as well. I've been a member there since 2015 and was the Town Mayor in 2017. During all my time on the Town Council, street trees issues or inquiry has not been anything that's been discussed by the Town Council. It's not something I've had constituents or people come to speak to me about. So in terms of my personal involvement or understanding of it at the time when it was happening, there really is none other than, having read articles when they've appeared in the local newspapers.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for being clear about that. And then you were elected onto the City Council in 2019, and I wanted to ask what awareness of or involvement you had in any issues that the inquiry is looking at between when you were elected in 2019 and last year when the inquiry was established.
Very, very little again, actually. Just as a member and a backbencher, noting the information in relation to the positive steps that had been actually the council were taking at the time to put in place the partnership. So as members we were informed when those things were happening. But in terms of being involved in anything that had retrospectively happened during that period, as a backbench member of the council, newly elected member of the council, I didn't have any involvement at all. In May last year, I was elected as deputy leader of the council. It was at that point that we decided, in agreement with the Green Party, that we would have the inquiry, and I, along with Councillor Douglas Johnson, was asked to I don't know what the right term is, with a liaison person, whatever you want to call us, for the inquiry. I was chosen because I hadn't had any involvement and hadn't been on the council at the time of the street tree inquiry.
Right.
And of course, the integrity of the inquiry was important.
Right. Very good. Thank you very much indeed. So I want to ask now a bit more about your sort of understanding and assessment of the impact to date of the Streets Ahead programme. You talked in an answer to a previous question about, you know, the dramatic improvements that have been made to the roads and the pavements and the streetlights of the city and so on. But there have also been sort of impacts in relation to the elements that proved a bit more controversial and attracted opposition. And I wanted just to ask you for your take overall, therefore, on the Streets Ahead programme since 2012 up to now.
I think it's difficult to comment on from 2012 because I just didn't have any involvement with it, and I think probably other people who will be coming to give evidence will be in a better position to talk about that. I mean, for me, I think the council has been proactive and has been very positive, certainly over the last couple of years, in trying to make sure that lessons are learned and things are put in place, and I think that that's to be welcomed, and that is very positive. But before then, I don't think it would be fair for me to comment, if I'm...
Okay, no, that's fair enough. But just, I suppose it follows from what you've said that if lessons have been learned since 2019, I mean, it follows that there were lessons to be learned.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you very much indeed. Again, and I recognise that you weren't involved in the time and your knowledge may be limited, but I did want to ask you, as I will ask other people, if you have acquired any insight into why the controversial elements of the programme related to street trees were designed in the way they were back in the midst of time, and why they were incorporated in the contract agreed then. Is there anything else you've heard or identified as helping to explain that?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but no. No.
Okay, that's fine. And there will be other people we talk to who I think will have more insight into that. But I did want to ask you that as well. Again, and I to preface this again with recognising that you weren't on the council at the time and you don't have detailed information, but I am guessing that this must have been something that would have been subject to discussion among councillors in each group, including in the Labour group. I just wondered if you'd picked up any insight into why it proved problematic in the years 2016 to 2018 to resolve the dispute, when in fact it proved quite possible to resolve it in after early 2018. Have you picked up anything on what may have changed?
Not on anything that have changed. I just, in my own mind, wonder if it's just that a period of time has elapsed and people have had time to reflect, and it just felt that it was time to start, the process of sorting things out and moving things forward. But I can't say that it was anything that I'd ever picked up or involved in any discussions about.
Okay, no, I understand that. Again, and I'll ask other people this as well, but you may well, particularly because of the position that you have now and given some of the things you talked about earlier, and this is, with the benefit of hindsight and recognising once more your knowledge may be limited, whether you think there might have been anything that could have been done differently earlier on by any of the stakeholders on any side, which might have either prevented some of the problems that arose or made them easier to resolve.
I suppose ultimately, it's like everything, it all comes down to communication, doesn't it? And I think, and again, I don't know what the communication was like, but I think that probably that would be something important to look at in terms of early communication and engagement, see if perhaps they are things that should have been done better, so that everyone had a clear understanding of what was happening, why it was happening, and when it was going to happen. Those would seem to me to be the most obvious things that, with hindsight, may have possibly made a difference.
Yeah, okay, I think that's an important point. And would that communication include kind of establishing the views of people in different parts of the city on what was being planned?
Absolutely, and I think hopefully that's one of the lessons that we've already learned, and is something that certainly as a council now we're trying to make sure we're doing all areas of business, because I do think it's important that, you know, whatever we're doing as a council, we need to make sure that the people that we represent are happy with it, or understand the reason and the necessity for it.
Right, okay, very good, that's helpful. And I mean, this gets to a similar sort of issue, really. Is there anything else that occurs to you that needs to be thought of into the future to avoid the risk of similar problems re-emerging?
It ultimately always comes down to, like I just said, I think it always comes down to communication, being open, transparent as a council, and making sure that, you know, those sorts of things that we do embed into the way that we do business. We had a change of governance this May, so we moved from a strong leader model to a committee system of governance, and as part of the work that we've done for the governance, new governance arrangements, we have put in place quite an extensive toolkit about how we will engage and liaise with communities through all areas of business. We've also set up local area committees, so that all members are meeting regularly locally with their communities in formal settings, and have local action plans for work that we will do as local councillors on behalf of our constituents, which is consulted on. So I think we are definitely moving in the right direction, and I think those are the things that we should be doing, that it's important that we keep doing. And also, I think it's about not sitting back on your laurels and making sure that you do refresh and make sure that those things are working for everybody who's involved. So I think the council has moved forward quite a lot. I think we're going in the right direction, and I think it's important that this inquiry can, you know, just be the final piece in the jigsaw, as it were, to deal with this outstanding dispute.
Yeah. Okay, very good. That's really, really helpful. Thank you. Well, that was the thing, a list of things I wanted to discuss with you. But I'd also like to give you an opportunity to say anything else you'd like to say. So, over to you.
Thank you. I think for me this is an important process for the city. So I would really like to thank everyone who is going to be involved or has been involved already. I understand for some people that may be difficult, but hopefully it will get us to the conclusion that we need to be at as a city, which I think is really important. I hope, as you said in your opening remarks, that everyone who attends treats everyone else with respect, that people don't watch little bits of the live streaming and jump to conclusions. I think it's important that you are allowed to hear all the evidence, that you are allowed to make come to sensible conclusions based on all of the evidence, and that we don't jump to conclusions at points along the way. I think that's really important. And I think the other thing for me is, again, something we're learning a lot as a council, is that we need to make sure that all voices are heard, not just the loudest voices. We need to make sure that those that are seldom heard have the opportunity and have the confidence to come forward and speak to you, because I think it's really important that this is the opportunity now. And so for me it's a plea that everyone who has something to say does have that opportunity to say it. And just finally, thank you very much to you and your team for all of the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. Let me just reinforce two things, if I may, in terms of what you've just said. The first thing is, like you, I think I would ask people not to jump to conclusions or draw conclusions about what we may conclude before we finish our process. As I've said, and it remains our intention, we will publish our report, I expect, in March. And nobody should think they know what we're going to say before we publish their report, because I promise you they won't know what we're going to say. So let's not jump to too many conclusions before we've gathered all the evidence. And then the second thing, and thank you for making this point, is we are really, really keen to make it as easy as possible for anybody who's got something which they think is relevant and they want us to know, to tell us that. And people can come to us privately, either send us material on the email. We have our webpage which gives you details of how to do that. Excuse me. Or we can have private meetings with people. We've had lots and lots of private discussions with people, and we treat that information confidentially. And there will be public ways in which we will be able to engage with people as well. People coming to these sessions are coming at my invitation, and we need to have an appropriate mix of people coming to that. And I'm also very conscious that the council is incurring a lot of expenditure in the inquiry and in running these sessions, so we need to have a proportionate approach to doing it. But everybody who's got something to say to us, we will definitely have a way of hearing their point of view. And like you, I am concerned that sometimes some people find it harder to be heard, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure everyone can be heard on this occasion. So thank you very much indeed. It's been extremely helpful opening session, and I really appreciate the spirit you've entered into it with, but also the detailed points you've made, which we'll reflect on. Thank you. So that we can pause there, Charles. Thank you very much. That closes that session.